The Fear Factory is in full production. A simple contract investigating disappearances on the moon of Tel 6 will expose you to a darker side of the colony's secret past. Tel 6 ever progresses forward as a leader in artificial research, but a blend of technology and madness haunts every scientific advance. Oh no. On the outskirts of the colony sits a former scientific research facility, but now it's little more than a condemned junkyard. This landfill is the site of recent disappearances and disturbances, and now outsiders must discover the truth behind these events. And what these outsiders will find is grim and grisly. And who are those outsiders? Well, that's you. You are the adventurers accepting a contract to investigate where the heck people are disappearing. You are going to Fear Factory 5. Ah! I'm Alan Girding, and this is Mothershow, the totally unscripted show all about Mothership, the sci-fi horror role-playing game by Sean McCoy. And today, Fear Factory 5 is an adventure module print on demand through Amazon, not through TuesdayNightGames.com. So why the heck am I talking about it since this is Tuesday Night Games channel? Well, this is the show all about Mothership, and I think I need to cover everything. What the heck's print on demand? All you do is you send your files to Amazon, and your module does not get printed until someone buys it. Then Amazon prints it, stables it together, and ships it out. Therefore, obviously pay Jeff Bezos, Amazon some of your profits, but you get some of the profits of the sale as well when you do that. But you don't have to have a warehouse or a retail store or, heaven forbid, your garage full of copies of your adventure module you're waiting to sell. Now, there are side effects to doing this. First of all, your profit margin is going to be smaller, and also you're going to have that cardinal sin of having these blank inside cover pages at the beginning and end. Oh man. Let's talk about the content, because you don't need to know why or how someone is publishing these games. You just want to know, is this game for you or not? So we're going to dive into the basic stats of this, and then I'm going to go into categories like the art, the story, the playability, and I'm going to tell you the sweet and the salty, because there is a good mix. For everything good about this adventure module, in my opinion, there's something that maybe is equally as bad, because you can't have the sweet without the salt. You can't have the carrot without a little stick. You can't have the shake without a little slap. Damn it. Writing and development, Jason Duff and Cody Lay. Editing, layout, and art direction, Jason Duff. The cover art, Tithi Loudthong. By the way, beautiful cover art. This really grabs my attention. Looking at these other print on demands, I will say Fear Factory 5. Well, that's the one I want to pick up and touch because it's so cool looking. So Tithi, really good cover art. And then interior art, you got a bunch of people, and they even say Geek Click at Shutterstock, and I'm gonna explain that later when we talk about the art. How many pages is in this bitch? Not a lot. 24 pages, but these pages are numbered. That's nice. How big is this? It's a lot bigger than the standard zine size, because if you look at these other zines, it's nice that they're all the same size. Oh ho ho. But then we have the standard big bitch. Gorgonok, still bigger somewhat, because you're gonna see that Fear Factor 5 maybe has been eating some ho-hos, because it's actually fatter. I should say wider than Gorgonok, but it's not as tall. So you got the short, tall, and it doesn't have as many pages as Gorgonok. Gorgonok still is the biggest, unnecessarily so, but Fear Factory 5, pretty big. Comparing this to the standard Dungeons and Dragons size of book, you can see that almost matches up to that as far as the height and width. Pretty slick. It's just slightly shorter and right on when it comes to the width. Obviously way thinner. But let's get into the good stuff. What is actually happening in Fear Factory 5? There is this colony or research facility that's really famous for making artificial intelligence, but people have been disappearing, and they're pretty sure it has something to do with the junkyard that is to the west of the colony. You are hired by the governor, and so you talk to the governor's assistant, tells you, hey, find out where all these people are going and where they're disappearing. But if you succeed in some intelligence checks or psychology checks to help you out, what you learn is you're not the first party, you're not even the second party. A whole bunch of people have been headed off into the junkyard, and they too are disappearing. So the good part of this is there's a lot of great story hooks, rising tension, a climax, and a resolution. So it does follow that typical 3-act narrative of a good story. Here's the spoiler. You find out robots are kind of rebelling, and they're taking people, using their body parts to make themselves cyborgs, replacing a broken arm with a human arm arm. I do like the story. I also love the artwork. Some gorgeous pieces right here. Very technical skull. This kind of throne room. This really does a great job of setting the atmosphere. You can just visually imagine that your players are walking into this technological graveyard, this city of the undead. But instead of ghosts and liches and vampires, you will have cyborgs and robots, half human body parts. Look at this, that's gorgeous, those glowing eyes. What could possibly be the bad in the artwork? It is so beautiful. Well, it's totally not connected to what is in the text. For instance, look at this picture. Big skull and this body. This is an incredible piece. You got one person down here, a lone adventurer with some kind of gun, facing against this kaiju freaking robot skeleton with a flying dude with glowing eyes. What? Nothing to do with what's in the story. Here's like one of the dead giveaways. In the story, you could encounter a creature that's in a pit that has a whole bunch of tentacles. Oh, well, that's definitely this. How, Alan, can you say that this isn't connected to what's in the story? Well, if you look here, I think I see a wizard spreading a whole bunch of fairy dust around. So when you look at these artists and it says Geek Click at Shutterstock, I can tell that what they did, whether it be smart or dumb, is they went ahead and bought gorgeous art. They stuck in here where they thought it would be appropriate, but it sometimes doesn't match. And that is the salt to the sweet of this beautiful art. What about the organization? The organization of this is pretty good. It does one of these beautiful things that I love, and it includes a flow chart. It really shows you what's going on. It also has page numbers, which we already indicated, and it has a very nifty table of contents. So what could possibly be the problem? Well, it's missing a couple of things. So while it does have page numbers, internally, it doesn't reference any page numbers. This is really fascinating to me because in last week's episode, we talked about Salt, and Salt does do a great job of referencing page numbers. It will say something like, on page 22, you'll see the map, but there's no page numbers. But in this one, it doesn't reference page numbers, and it does have it. However, it does have the table of contents there. So you will be flipping back and forth going from the table of contents. The other thing it's really missing, which I think all adventure modules should have, is a GM warden synopsis. When I am trying to learn an adventure, I want to know everything that happens. Spoilers, yes please, I'm the warden. I don't need the surprise or suspense because I'm the one doing the surprising here. So I need to know all the little tricks, twists, and turns as soon as possible. Give me a total outline and overview. Now, with that being said, they kind of do that with the flowchart, but it could be much more descriptive. Imagine you have this visual flowchart, but you also have another flowchart that tells you exactly story-wise what happens. The other thing that is missing when it comes to the organization is reading prompts for the warden to read to their players. You'll see something in italics, which traditionally means, oh, this is something that you read to the players. But it isn't. It's just flavor text. Therefore, you are forced to create and improvise all of the descriptions that you might need. For instance, even right here, let's look at one of the encounters, the lesser reanimated robots. It reads, robots with no actual intelligence that respond to programming. These particular robots have been fused with organic flesh. Regardless, these creatures appear to be malfunctioning and will lash out at anyone close by. I obviously can't read that to my players because upon seeing these lesser reanimated robots, they're not supposed to know what they are at first. And they shouldn't know they respond to programming and they're gonna lash out at anyone if they get too close. They need to figure that out for themselves. But if we look at the reading prompt that comes before it, well, first of all, there is none. There's nothing in italics before that. And the closest thing to it is this section right here, which doesn't mention them at all. So let's see how good my improv skills are. Instead, you'd have to do something like, you turn the corner and just see more of the vast array of metallic junkyard world, but you see motion far off in the distance, and it seems to be human figures walking your way. They're accompanied with the strange sounds of clicks and whirs. What is that? Their movement is not quite human enough. In fact, upon closer inspection, you realize they are not humans at all, but instead robots with hanging, bloody, fleshy human body parts, some type of bizarre, disgusting juxtaposition competition between flesh and machine. Roll a mind save or gain a stress. You know, so I have to come up with that because it doesn't necessarily tell you that. It does do a good job of giving you details of when something will require a body save or an armor save, or something may have advantage or disadvantage, and it bolds these. Really convenient. So again, there's some good and there's some bad. So overall, how does this thing play? Is this a fun adventure or is this a shit adventure? I think there are really good encounters in here, and there's good encounter variety. Simply said, there's 3 generic types of encounters in any adventure you find. There's combat encounters, there's social encounters, and then there's trap/puzzle encounters. This one really lays heavily on the violent and social encounters, and there aren't too many puzzle or trap encounters, but they're in here and there's good variety there. There is opportunities to bargain with individuals. For instance, you come up to these individuals that are selling some gear and you can go ahead and barter with them, and they can sell you some interesting good stuff here, like binary scrambler or the EMP grenades, which you may need later on. That's wonderful. There's plenty of opportunities for stealth and plenty of opportunities for negotiation instead of resorting to violence. At the end of the day, Fear Factory 5 is incredibly engaging. However, there's minimal puzzles, and if you look at this flowchart, even though it's one of the best things, it's also its greatest weakness because you can see it is very linear. The first decision the players really come in contact with, besides am I gonna sneak, am I gonna talk to this person, what am I gonna say, is when they get to the Fear Factory, do they take the red path or the green path? This is literally the first time they have to make a decision of left or right. So on the continuum of linear on rails versus totally open-ended sandbox, Fear Factory 5 is very much over here on the linear. It's not all the way over, there is some space to be had, but it's pretty far over as far as linear goes. The last thing I want to talk about is customization. Obviously, you are forced to customize this to your likes. You have to fill in the blanks when it comes to descriptions and what the players see. And I think that's great and easy to do for experienced wardens, but maybe a little bit tricky for those that are just starting off. It's very easy to tweak. For instance, there's something in here where they come across these robots that are disembodying corpses and it causes the party to panic. But I would change it into living people that they may be able to rescue, and you hear their screams. That makes it extra horror, but I'm sick like that. I love my horror to be saturated. Also, I think it would be easy to tweak the story to match the art even more. I mean, it's gonna be hard to justify this wizard over here, but for instance, the big baddie is this one. This is your main villain, and it even says he doesn't look like this. The main attribute visually is the big baddie has an exposed human brain, but here there's no exposed human brain, but you can just change that. You could say there's tendrils that are alive that hang from him as if he's some sort of living heart for this entire factory. So I think that's something really good, but also something really bad. Good in that it's ripe for tweaking and making your own. Bad that it really requires tweaking. So what's my opinion of Fear Factory 5? Thumbs up. It's a great one-shot. I think if you sit down and you read this all the way through and you prepare, you could have this done in 1 3-hour session, a true one-shot. Now that's gonna take some experience and definitely some editing here or there. You can even do some trickery where you force players towards the end if you're on a timeline. Could you ever get more than a one-shot out of this? Maybe 2 shots, maybe 3 adventure sessions, but after that, it's getting pretty thin. This costs you $12.99, and this, for just $2 more though, you could get Gradient Descent at Tuesday Night Games. So for just those $2 more, what do you get? Well, instead of just 20 pages, you get almost 70 pages jam-packed of charts, encounters, and a whole bunch of adventures in a living world. This is not linear at all. This has custom art that actually applies to every little thing that you see. The art that your eyes eat applies to what you are reading. It is a mega dungeon. You're not gonna get 3 to 9 hours out of this. You're gonna get 3 to 9 sessions at least. But you shouldn't really compare these because that's apples to oranges. This is probably a one-shot, and this is another living world that your players can visit time and time again. Get in, get out, do a mega dungeon, maybe solve it, maybe try to beat it. So why am I comparing it if these are so obviously different in their form? Well, Fear Factory 5 is all about a planet that is being taken over by robots. Gradient Descent is about a planet that has been taken over by robots. They have very similar themes and feels. But in the end, I think there's room for both. But what do you think? That's what I want to know. Specifically, let's talk about Fear Factory 5. Do you think it's worth your $12.99 on Amazon giving it to Jeff Bezos instead of us? If so, what is the sweetest aspect of Fear Factory 5 that I covered? And if you're not excited about it, or even if you are, what is the biggest sourpuss about it? What's the thing that turns you off the most? I want to know. So make sure you pound that subscribe button, do the thing, leave a comment, buy all our shit at TuesdayNightGames.com, because that's why I'm doing this thing. Give us your money, yo. I'm out of here. Thank you so much for your time.